Welcome to Venezuela Insider, the only place in Venezuela for expats, digital nomads, entrepreneurs, investors, travelers, and related internationals. For more information, venezuelainsider.com. Today we're talking about an economic slowdown in Venezuela, and the answer is yes, it's happening. I will say there is a bite the dip moment, as traders called it. However, the situation is a little bit, tricky, so we're going to discuss it today. So let's start. So on recent weeks, we had a drop on consumer spending here in Venezuela, especially on Caracas. And that's a very important issue because Caracas means 1/3 of consumer spending on the whole Venezuela and also represents 40% of Venezuelan GDP. I'm talking the greater Caracas area. That's by one hand. What happened is there is this huge discrepancy, inequality between the haves and have-nots. In the past couple of years, we have seen a lot of openings of high-end businesses like high-end restaurants, shops, and most of the new businesses are catering to a niche market. I'm talking the high-end market. And what we have in right now is that the population that is below is being unattended by investors, entrepreneurs, business owners overall. The thing is that this drop on consumption, it is not only on non-essential and discretionary goods and services like shopping, restaurants, and any leisure and hospitality activities, but also on essentials like food, medicine, healthcare, you name it. So, of course, the drop on consuming is significant on non-essentials and discretionary items, but it's also significant regarding the essential goods and services of the economy, food, medicine, healthcare, education for the kids, you name it. What we have in here is that, remember, that most Venezuelans have a very low purchasing power, so they have very little, have this tiny little wiggle room for their budget. Also, they don't have access to financing, credits, mortgages, you name it. The credit here in Venezuela, the banking credit is pretty much non-existent, especially for the middle class and below. And according to some data, the GDP is expected to contract on the first quarter of 2023, 6% compared to the first quarter of last year. That doesn't mean the economy is going to collapse. It's just that it's being overheated with this surplus of goods and services for the high-end niche market. Now, I want to read some takes from my favorite Venezuelan economist, Asdrúbal Oliveros, that has on the situation. And he says that the business model has to be fitted to the market that we have right now in Venezuela, because what we have is an offer for luxury goods and services instead of mass consumption. He says that the business owners, the entrepreneurs, and the private sector has to understand that Venezuela still is a poor country with an impoverished citizens. So how do you going to service this population that is huge among Venezuelans? He also mentions that the poverty here in Venezuela has shade, has hues. Amongst all the impoverished Venezuelan people, there are still people that has a little of purchasing power. They have decent income for Venezuelan standards, and they can afford to buy some goods or hire some services, of course, with a tiny budget. And if companies establish first a good scale operation and also a good value offer to such individuals, they can also be profitable on the long term, but it has to be with a good economics of scale. And he also mentions that the niche market mindset for the luxury goods and services is a mistake overall. He also mentions that, like I said before, poverty has changed, has huge. Not everyone is equally poor. Some have better purchasing power than others. Also, there is right now the status quo is a wrong market perception. I agree. He mentions and states that you shouldn't rule out poverty with some consumption capacity. I totally agree. And you have to be competitive in order to offer goods and services to a target consumer. And this target can be greater than most business owners might think on the first place. And lastly, I want to mention that some creative destruction has to be going on right now in Venezuela. Because on the past, let's say, 3 years since COVID, let's say, a little bit after COVID, what we had here in Venezuela is just an expansion, a surplus of businesses, small and mid-sized businesses that are catered towards the high-end consumer, especially on Caracas, especially on the east side of Caracas, especially on Las Mercedes. I love Las Mercedes, but it has some issues. Well, and some of those businesses are going to be bankrupt and are going to be extinct because they read wrongly the market signals, and what is going to happen is most likely they are going to be belly up, they're going to go bankrupt because there is a surplus on such offers. Instead, such business should make an offer to the less wealthy Venezuelan, create a better strategy in order to cater towards such people that still have some significant purchasing power on the broad side, on the overall side, not individually. And maybe you can offer a good restaurant, maybe a good clothing apparel, a good leisure and hospitality service, you name it, you name it, you name it. And I want to finish the video mentioning 3 industries that Asdrúbal Oliveros mentions that might be an opportunity for the lower end market that still has purchasing power. And those industries are, first, on insurance, you can offer a competitive price of an insurance policy for, let's say, the less wealthy Venezuelan. And if you offer something with a good price, with a reasonable price, you can get a lot of customers. Also, the tourism in Venezuela, doing tourism is expensive, and I agree. However, it could be some service, leisure and hospitality services catered toward the lower earned population that maybe want to go to the beach or to the mountains or whatever might be the activity within Venezuela. In Venezuela, we have a bunch of places that are touristic worthy. And the third industry is, of course, less expensive restaurants. Right now, we have a high offer of high-end restaurants, luxury restaurants, expensive restaurants. Yes, we have a bunch of those. Instead, we should expand, the entrepreneurs and the business owners maybe should expand their offer to less wealthy people, doing less wealthy restaurants on less wealthy neighborhoods with a more affordable items and goods and dishes and such that can be very attractive for people that maybe they're not rich, maybe they're a little bit poorer, but still have some consumption capacity, and the results might surprise. Thank you for watching Venezuela Insider. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. If you want to work with us, VenezuelaInsider.com. Thanks again and have a nice day.